Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben, my friend.
Great Malabite.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Adesua, my sister.
Good morning, Mr. Efeni.
Yes. Let's start with this, the newspapers as usual. The lead story: federal government bows to pressure, reopen schools for graduating students. Article, NUT, private school owners hail decision. Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria list 8 conditions for safe reopening of schools. WAEC commences August 17. That should be WASC, West African's Senior Secondary School Examination. Now, other newspapers are also reporting this story. The Daily Trust newspaper, WASC, students optimistic as teachers, parents fear mass failure. Time too short for preparation, teachers. We are ready. Private schools. Federal government to domesticate timetable. Nigeria got ready. Nigeria not ready to reopen schools. Nigeria, according to Nigeria Medical Association. While the Punch newspaper, NUT insists on PPE. That's the Punch newspaper. NUT insists on PPE orders as senior secondary school 3 pupils resume August 4th. WASC starts August 7th. Teachers Union undertakes to monitor schools. Only COVID-19 protocol compliant exam centers will reopen. That's according to the minister. Now, yes, I happen to be one of those putting pressure on the federal government to do the needful. And I'm happy that this decision has been taken, but everybody will agree that the rights, all the right protocols must be in place. Between now and August 4 is a short time. All the period we used to debate, ministers of state and ministers disagreeing, I'm sure we could have used those periods to prepare, but I want to believe that all hands will be on deck to ensure that our students are safe. Because come to think of it, we're talking about one-third of the school population going back, not all students, just about one-third of the population. So everything should be in place, and these students should be able to write these exams. Whether they are prepared, well prepared, or not is a matter of conjecture at this stage, because the quality of online or virtual learning some of these public schools have received also has question marks. But these exams will be written. The federal government has given the go-ahead. Ruben, Adesua, Rufai.
Well, it's unfortunate. It just points to the fact that, you know, the disparity in learning alternatives that we have not been paying attention to might just be coming back to actually haunt us. Like you did mention, it would be strange to hear anybody say, you know, the students are not prepared enough, because this was not a usual holiday. It was not even a holiday at all. And I remember that the federal government, you know, almost immediately swung into action by providing those alternative learning platforms. National broadcasting platforms were used. A state like Lagos opted for transistor radios, like they said they were going to use, to reach the students. So one would think that learning never really stopped, and if it stopped, it picked up back early. But how many people had access to those alternative learning platforms? And I think that's where the problem is. Yes, Emmanuel, I'm sure you're happy. You've been one of the proponents of schools reopening, especially for these classes, because they are young adults. We do hope that they will take responsibility. There's also a responsibility for the parents who are going to be releasing their children to go for these exams. I think the greater responsibility is on them. And regards these protocols being in place, I think that where there's the political will and the funding, because for me, funding is very particular. like I said earlier, these protocol measures are not cheap in any way. So if we have the political will and the funding, I think that perhaps we might be ready to write these exams.
Right. I just quickly want to say, finally, we've pushed, a lot of people have pushed for this. It's been given. They can go ahead to write their exams. There are measures being put in place as regards that. But when you look at it very critically, and that's why you raise a very salient point as regards, they still went through some education processes at home, they were taught and the likes. But are we serious about this? Why I said are we serious? Can we really, review and have refresher and remedial classes for these students in about 2-3 weeks before they sit for WAEC? To me, I'm not sure that these students were reading. Yes, they could have been doing the home classes and the likes, but I'm not sure they were reading. I'm not sure they were studying enough, because you need the rigor to be able to come together and teach them. So let us look at this critically. I mean, there are some people that are saying, no, this is mass failure staring at us. We don't pray for that. But are we sure they are ready? Just like as though we are leading them to slaughter. 3 weeks before exam, people that prepare for exam almost a year or two, they don't still get it right.
Well, I mean, there is a role in all of this for teachers and also for parents particularly. I think on the safety side of it, parents themselves have a job to do, to talk to their children, because the children themselves need to take responsibility to realize that this pandemic is real. Even if in the Nigerian society you see that, a lot of people think that the whole thing is a joke, that it's just a circus, and they are no longer taking it seriously. But parents have a job to do. That's the first point. The second point is that there must also be a monitoring process in place, whereas it may be easy for owners of private schools, or rather easier for owners of private schools to enforce the basic protocols about safety. In the public schools, I'm not too sure that they will have the capacity or pay enough attention. And then when you even talk about public schools, we should expect some kind of disparity between schools in urban areas and schools in rural areas. In many rural areas, COVID-19 sounds like a foreign thing that is for the elite or for the urban communities. So there's also a lot of work in that regard for government to do. In our time, they used to have inspectorate division in educational ministries, and inspectors that went round, that even went onto the streets. If they saw a child on the street, they will arrest that child and send the child to a remand home and all of that. But these days, like everything else in Nigeria, many things have collapsed. But this time calls for vigilance. It's not just about writing exams and the examination bodies meeting their own calendar. The major priority is about safety. But Emmanuel Efeni, let's take a short break, and then when we return, we'll continue with the newspaper review with you. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni, who is reviewing newspapers from around the world. Emmanuel Efeni, back to you.
Yes, Ruben, let's move to other subjects. The Vanguard newspaper, NDDC contracts. Senators up in arms against Akpabio. Minister's submission a cheap blackmail, says Senate. Senators manager Nwaoboshi Urogide battle Akpabio Ojugbo. I don't know anything about contracts. Just came to National Assembly in 2019, says Tunji Ojo, Niger Delta Minister IMC diverting attention, National Youth Council of Nigeria, groups mobilized for massive protests in 9 states. Protesters demand Akpabio's resignation. Don't scrap NDDC. Urobo Group warns federal government. Now let's look at how other newspapers are reporting this story. The Daily Independent, Senate exonerate members from NDDC contract scam, says lawmakers only influence projects to be executed. Now, the Nigerian Tribune has another dimension to this story. Reps Committee, that's the story beneath the photographs, yes. Reps Committee invites over 30 reps, EFCC, Army, ex-governors, others, over 500 billion NDDC emergency contract to probe Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, Ondo, Imo, caucus lawmakers. Now, if we read the story, it emanates from the documents Akpabio sent to the National Assembly, which Femi Gbajamila, the Speaker, sent to the Ethics Committee. And part of that, of the memo reads, some of the members listed in the controversial letter are from Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, Ondo, Imo, as well as unnamed caucus in the House of Representatives. Some of the acronyms written, is also listed as beneficiaries of the multi-billion NDDC contracts are House of Rep caucus also got contracts worth 254 billion. If you read this memo, which is from Akpabio, it mentioned a number of House of Rep members, caucus members, and they are talking of emergency contracts of 2018. That's what Akpabio was talking about. And he said he was not given the opportunity to explain at that hearing. Otherwise, he would have explained all this. So the issue of NDDC contracts and National Assembly members is getting messier. I don't know whether the National Assembly, whether the Senate or the House, they are in a position to probe themselves in this matter. But we'll all keep watch and monitor what happens when they resume from the Salah break. Ruben, at this one, Rufai.
Well, I mean, all of this is to be expected. I mean, you won't expect that Senator Akpabio will make those allegations and he will not get a reaction from the persons who were directly named. But the question that the average Nigerian will be interested in, what exactly is the truth? Now, there's nothing wrong in a lawmaker saying he's influencing projects for as long as those projects exist and that they are not fictitious. But what is disturbing is that we get to hear that, look, many of these projects are just on paper, paid for, right? And that those projects do not exist in reality because nobody has executed them.
And money left the coffers.
Now, I mean, there used to be in the presidency, I don't know whether they still have somebody in charge of that function, a monitoring and evaluation function, or if you like, department, whereby, there will be a special advisor who on a regular basis will take his team to go and monitor projects across the country and report appropriately to the president on the in terms of the state of the project, the level of development and all of that. If we're not doing that, then maybe we have dropped the ball in that regard, because people cannot just write projects on paper and then collect money and the project does not exist. And we have heard from people of the Niger Delta who claim that many of these projects that have been mentioned are fictitious. They do not exist. So that's a big problem there. But of course, I hope that Senator Akpabio will remain courageous, will stand by his story, and will not turn around and say, oh, he has again been misrepresented. Nigerians have a right to know, as I keep pointing out. And the lawmakers themselves, they must know that even if they claim that, well, this is blackmail, this is an attempt to intimidate us, the truth at some point will come out.
And we're waiting for the truth to come out because this is the interest of a lot of Nigerians, especially those from the Niger Delta region that are looking forward to their region to be better for them and that are looking forward to have better livelihoods. So we're waiting for the truth to come out. A lot of Nigerians are waiting for it. I know there was going to be that reaction. And they have a right of rebuttal, really, in all fairness to the lawmakers that no, this is not the case. But apart from this, we should look at it critically. We should wait for a proper investigation around this. Anybody that is found guilty should face the full wrath of the law as regards this.
A lot of issues have been raised. Yes, the lawmakers can influence, but to what extent do they influence? Do you influence to the extent that you become a contractor, you know, or do you influence to the extent that your company is bidding or even gets the contract without bidding? We are talking about extra budgetary process. We're talking about Public Procurement Act, you know, being violated here. I think that there's a lot to come. We may not have seen the end of this.
More to come, I agree with you at this one. New Telegraph newspaper, DSS, highly placed persons plotting to destabilize Nigeria. Military to officers, no room for mutiny, disloyalty. Armed forces, we are loyal to Buhari civil authorities. Of course, that issue came up when the chairman, the national chairman of the National Democratic Party, Mr. Chidi Chinwani, called for the Rawlings treatment to be replicated in Nigeria, in view of the endemic corruption in the country. Of course, we know what the Rawlings treatment is or was. How Jerry Rawlings rounded up soldiers, including 3 former heads of state, executed them, and some persons say Ghana became better for it. But we are in a democracy, and it's surprising that somebody who is the chairman of a party, a political party, is making that kind of call. Now the DSS, the military, they are all warning that there should be no room for that kind of activity from our military in Nigeria. I wonder why the chairman of a party will be making that kind of call, Ruben. Is he frustrated by the situation in the country into making such a call, Rufai and this one?
Well, I mean, I think what everybody must note is that, look, we're under the rule of law, and the government of the day has a responsibility to uphold the rule of law and ensure order, peace, and stability. It's not part of civic responsibility to call for any form of insurrection. In fact, that may be interpreted as incitement to violence. It may even be taken further and be classified as a treasonable felony. But I guess people get frustrated sometimes, so they get so frustrated they ask for a revolution. Now, the armed forces, the military, saying that, look, if anybody tries to destabilize Nigeria, they will have no option but to work with civil authorities to ensure that does not happen. Well, that's in line with the Armed Forces Act, because part of the job of the military is to ensure, to protect the integrity of the sovereign state of Nigeria. I do not support anybody calling for any kind of insurrection. You know, that would be a felony on its own. So you really cannot blame the military if they say, you know, they have a duty to make sure that nobody destabilizes Nigeria. That's part of their job.
Yeah. Let's keep to peace. You know, Nigeria is going through a lot as a country. Let's just try as much as possible to maintain peace, and let's stop this. You know, let's stop this words here and there that we don't like. What we should be thinking of more is how we can develop our country, how we can recover from COVID-19 pandemic, how we can bolster our economy and make our country truly the pride of many, not toppling anything. I think we've seen this too much in our national life, that it doesn't bring about we don't gain anything by bringing about uncertainty and insecurity in our country. So let's focus more on the work of rebuilding our country, rebuilding our economy, ensuring that small businesses are boosted, ensuring that people can truly call Nigeria the home they want to live in, not about things like this.
We can't demand accountability from our leaders without resorting to violence and insurrection and treasonable felony. I think that for too long, we have passed the bulk. There's enough blame to go around on the government side and on the people's side.
Okay, if we just have time, let's look at Washington Post newspaper. Coronavirus relief talks ramp up as GOP unveils plan. $1 trillion proposal from the Republican Party. The Senate. Will that be enough to assuage the Democrats? Certainly not. But talks will continue whether they can strike a bipartisan agreement on the next relief package. Jobs are, of course, still at stake. the current benefit will expire. Some Americans will be thrown out of their residence for failure to pay, and the GOP and the Democrats, they are still haggling over this.
So I was hearing a story about this that was talking about the fact that the $600 said they were going to pay them. Some people are arguing that it should be $200, and that's just to show the division and the bipartisanship in America. I think the fight the Democrats are looking at, apart from the fight for the citizens, is the fact that it's an election year, there are lots at stake, and it's about the Democrats to getting their own way. It's about a concession. But what they should also be concerned about, really, is about the American people. I mean, because nobody planned for this. This has come to expose the American people. I think it was only yesterday that Donald Trump was saying, oh, I'll put more money into the economy, I'll put more stimulus. But the Democrats are saying that on the other side, you are almost lame duck already. That's another argument, because November we'll have to vote for another president. But most importantly, let the American people come first.
Well, the key argument is this. I mean, so far, America has provided about $2.4 trillion for households and for businesses as part of the stimulus package. Now, the concerns are as follows. Now, the Democrats are proposing 3 trillion naira. I said $3 trillion. $3 trillion dollars. And the Republican plan is about $1 trillion dollars. And so the Democrats are saying the Republican plan amounts to about 30% pay cut. But there's this concern about people who are getting unemployment supplement, who want to remain there, who are not making any effort to look for jobs, and who are, in fact, who may seem to be any more unemployed than if they make the effort to look for jobs. But the argument of the Democrats is that, look, the jobs are not even there in the context of a COVID-19. But we imagine that at the end of the day, they will be able to reach a middle ground, in terms of what is being proposed. And maybe other countries can learn from this, because earlier on, we were saying that about $100 billion will be provided for education alone, for schools. Yes. And we'd like to see that kind of stimulus here also in Nigeria, perhaps. Well, thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni.
Thank you.